In the dark rooms of Bletchley Park there was no sound of engines, no roar of guns, no smell of salt water or cordite, yet decisions made there would determine who lived and who vanished beneath the Atlantic waves. This story does not begin on a submarine bridge or a convoy deck. It begins with paper, pencils, chalkboards, and a kind of mathematics so dry and unglamorous that even many senior officers dismissed it as boring theory, while sailors died at sea. British analysts were staring at columns of numbers, lists of dates, times, locations, ship names, cargo tonnage, and survival rates. To most people, it looked like meaningless clutter, but to one analyst, it looked like a map of death and a way to break it. During the height of the Battle of the Atlantic, German U-boats were sinking Allied ships faster than they could be replaced. Entire convoys vanished. Oil, food, ammunition, all lost beneath the waves. Admirals argued for more escorts, more guns, more aircraft, but the numbers kept getting worse. Winston Churchill later admitted that the U-boat threat was the only thing that truly frightened him because it was silent, invisible, and relentless. German commanders believed they had found the perfect weapon, packs of submarines coordinated by radio, striking from darkness, then disappearing again. And for a time they were right. But inside Bletchley Park, a different kind of battle was unfolding. British cryptanalysts had already made breakthroughs against Enigma, but decrypting messages was only half the fight. Knowing what the enemy said did not automatically explain what the enemy would do. That required interpretation, context, and pattern recognition. This is where the boring mathematics came in. Analysts began plotting every sinking on massive charts: latitude, longitude, time of day, moon phase, weather, escort presence, radio traffic. They did not look for dramatic revelations, they looked for repetition. Small habits, predictable behaviors, things that human commanders repeated without realizing it. German U-boat captains were highly trained, disciplined, and brave, but they were also human. They preferred certain routes, certain depths, certain attack timings. They followed standing orders and operational doctrines that made sense tactically, but created statistical fingerprints when viewed across hundreds of attacks. One analyst noticed that sinkings were not random. They clustered, not just geographically, but temporally. Certain areas went quiet for days, then suddenly exploded with losses. Others seemed avoided entirely, even when convoys passed nearby. This suggested not chance, but planning and waiting. Wolf packs were positioning themselves ahead of convoys, using radio reports to converge, and then striking at optimal moments. The math showed something even more important. When Enigma messages went silent, sinkings increased, and when traffic spiked, attacks often failed. This implied that radio discipline itself was revealing U-boat positions. The German Navy believed Enigma made them invisible, but the act of transmitting even encrypted messages created patterns. British listening stations across the Atlantic tracked signal strength, direction, and frequency. Analysts combined this data with sinking statistics and weather reports to estimate submarine locations even when the messages themselves were unreadable. This was boring work: hours, days, weeks of plotting lines, recalculating probabilities, checking assumptions, and being told repeatedly by naval officers that it was too abstract, too theoretical, too slow for wartime reality. But the numbers did not lie. Gradually, convoy routes were adjusted, not randomly, but surgically. Ships were diverted away from predicted ambush zones, sometimes by only a few miles. Aircraft patrols were intensified in places where math suggested submarines were lurking, not where sightings had already occurred. At first, the effects were subtle. A convoy loses one ship instead of 6, then none at all. German commanders noticed something strange. Attacks were becoming harder, opportunities vanished, fuel was wasted searching empty seas, wolf packs arrived too late or found escorts already waiting. They blamed bad luck, weather, even treachery, but the truth was more unsettling. The ocean itself was betraying them through mathematics. One German U-boat commander later wrote that it felt as if the enemy could see through the water, that every move was anticipated.
What he did not know was that no one was watching him directly. They were watching the averages, the probabilities, the invisible shape of his behavior repeated across the fleet. The breakthrough came when analysts combined Enigma traffic with statistical forecasts. Messages revealed intentions, while math predicted execution. A U-boat might be ordered to patrol a grid square, but the analyst could estimate when it would arrive, how long it could remain before refueling, where it would likely move next based on past behavior. Convoys were rerouted days in advance, escorts positioned, aircraft packs dispatched at the right time, not randomly, but with confidence. Losses dropped dramatically, while Allied shipping surged. The balance of the Atlantic War quietly tipped. German commanders could not understand how their perfect weapon had been neutralized without a decisive battle. There was no Trafalgar, no Jutland, no single catastrophic defeat, just an invisible tightening net. Admiral Donitz suspected Enigma had been compromised, but repeatedly reassured himself that it was impossible. The machines were changed, procedures updated, yet the losses continued, because the real weapon against the U-boats was not just code-breaking, it was boring mathematics. The kind that sees humans as data points, habits as equations, and war as a system that can be analyzed, optimized, and broken by logic rather than force. Sailors on Allied convoys never knew why some routes suddenly changed, or why air cover appeared at exactly the right moment. They only knew they survived. German submariners never knew why the sea grew empty, why prey vanished, why hunters became hunted by air. By 1943, the U-boat threat was effectively defeated, not by a single invention, but by a mindset that valued analysis over intuition, patience over heroism. The analysts at Bletchley Park never fired a shot, never sailed a convoy, never faced depth charges, yet they saved tens of thousands of lives and altered the course of the war. Their victory was quiet, uncelebrated, and at the time barely understood by even their own side. After the war, many German officers admitted they never grasped what had happened. The ocean had not changed, the ships had not changed, but the enemy had learned to think differently. Boring mathematics had turned chaos into clarity, and the Atlantic from a killing ground into a controlled space. This story is a reminder that in modern war, the most decisive breakthroughs do not always explode or roar. Sometimes they whisper across chalkboards late at night, changing history one calculation at a time.